Having heard from some extremely established figures in the luxury world, what about those brands that are just starting out into this luxury space? How would they achieve cut-through? And what are some of the challenges they must almost inevitably have to overcome? Next, to describe his journey from celebrity super stylist to a finalist in last year's LVMH Prize for Young Fashion Designers, would you please welcome Matthew Williams, who is in conversation this afternoon with the fashion director of the Financial Times, Joe Ellison.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Matthew, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
I'm just going to recap a little bit on your career so far. You grew up in California. You started working as a stylist and were instrumental in creating the on- and off-stage personas of Lady Gaga and Kanye West. You then founded the creative collective Bean Trill with Virgil Abloh and Heron Preston. You founded your own streetwear-influenced luxury brand, and we can discuss the terminology in 2 moments. 1017 Alyx 9SM in 2015, is that correct?
Yeah.
You told me earlier you've doubled revenues in the last since your launch year by year, and that your kind of current turnover is in the tens of millions. So
I thought that was just private talk, but
sorry,
yeah.
but doing very well. And also on top of that, you've done a number of collaborations, including one with Nike, and you produce all the hardware for Dior, for Kim Jones at Dior. So
and we do Montclair.
And you do Montclair, so you've got
and Macintosh.
And Macintosh.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Come on, there's more. But
yeah.
So it's a huge, diverse kind of portfolio and extraordinary kind of route towards it. I guess we're sitting here we're talking under the banner of a luxury kind of portfolio. Where do you see Alyx as your brand? As how do you define it?
Yeah, I think for me, Alyx is really about what it means to make clothes today. So, some things that need to be less expensive, that are more things that don't last as long, like maybe T-shirts or socks. We approach those in a way that's affordable and sustainable. We use regenerated cotton from textile waste and plastic bottles to make yarn to then make T-shirts. It's basically like a zero water process. But then we also do leather pants and leather jackets and things that are quite expensive but last a long time. And I think we're trying to find our own way. And each day there's new information about things that are relevant. But for me, I've always liked wearing a suit, but then at the same time like a band T-shirt. Or,
I mean, tell me a little bit about growing up in California as you did. What was the kind of cultural what were your touchstones there? What was fashion, in as much as you thought about fashion, and what was style? What were you looking at and absorbing?
Yeah, I grew up in Central California, which was, right in the middle between San Francisco and Los Angeles. So I grew up going to both of those major cities, my whole life, because it was kind of the only place that I could buy music or fashion, and you kind of would load up on the holidays, and it'd last you the whole year. But at the beginning, it was mostly like sportswear.
And how much were you aware of fashion as a kind of distant European entity with luxury houses?
I wasn't aware of it at all.
No.
It wasn't until I came to Europe in my late teens to play football here.
Right.
That I was more aware of like fashion, and then one of my football coaches had a brand, and I started interning for him when I was like 19. And I was like, oh, that's what I wanted to. That's what I want to do. So I just went towards it from that point. So I'm 33 now, so it's already been
disgustingly young. Yeah.
Like almost 15 years of running patterns, doing production, doing that whole process. So it feels like it's been a long time.
Yeah. But it seems like you're the embodiment of this kind of disruptive force. You were a football player, or you worked in music. You were in fashion. You're you're the kind of millennial dream in terms of like a kind of as a marketing thing? If you like come up with like the perfect concept of what a millennial designer
Yeah,
would be,
I mean,
or
at the
disruptor.
beginning, I cared about like skateboarding, and that was where I kind of learned the landscape of cities and learned about music, and style is so important in skateboarding. It's not necessarily like who's the strongest or jumps the highest. Like it's such a mental thing, and then that kind of like led me down the road to different artists and music, and then being so far away from fashion, and it was kind of pre-social media, pre just like Google translation of other languages. I didn't really know of a way to like go to school in Europe or anything. So, I applied to Parsons and I didn't get in, and then I just started working and just was hands-on, and then I moved to New York when I was like 20, and then just started running production and doing freelance design work for different brands in New York, and moved back to LA. But what LA did have at that time was like entertainment, and so costume design was something that was a way to do like more extreme clothing outside of just doing like jeans and t-shirts and the stuff that was
like modern couture.
Yeah. And
I mean, you were saying earlier you'd worked for like weeks and months on a single outfit in terms of like in your early career when you were on the road for doing the tour costumes.
Yeah, I mean, because there was like LA stylists at that time, and then there was like actual fashion stylists that was more like European based, and fashion brands 10 years ago weren't as open to lending clothing to all of the musicians. Like Madonna would get stuff from from people, but Gaga, when she was starting out, we had to make all that stuff. So it was kind of like that for like the first year and a half, and the same thing for Kanye. Like we were just forced to make stuff because it was more separated back then.
But do you think like you've kind of come along with this huge new wave, I think, in luxury? It's been disrupted enormously, both by the people that are now working as creatives within it, and also with the community that they've bought as, the consumer, the client. The whole sort of shape of it has changed. Did you feel when you did sort of launch your label that you were to some extent an outsider, or that you were a new voice in a consumer landscape that wasn't being spoken to?
Yeah, because it's really difficult to make clothing in America, being an American.
Right.
There's not as many resources as there is in Europe, and I was an American moving to Europe, making clothes here, part of a new community. I did have some touch points just from working in music, which was really great because I got to collaborate with people like Nick Knight and Stephen Klein. With Gaga, we got to do some stuff with Lee McQueen and Prada and things like that. But it was these kind of one-off projects where I got to meet a few people, so I wasn't like a complete stranger. But it took a bit of time for people to remember that I kind of came into music from fashion.
Right.
And a lot of times it was just kind of like thinking of me as somebody that didn't have the ability or know-how to do real fashion, or because I worked with rappers or love rap music.
Do you think though that
I would be considered like streetwear?
Well,
I think if you look at our product, it's equal, if not better, to a lot of luxury brands.
There's a lot of synonyms at the moment in luxury, streetwear being one, sportswear being another, athleisure being another. To what extent would you define, how would you define streetwear within the context of what you do, or is it a word that you really...
Yeah, no, I love streetwear. For me, it's like community.
Right.
I think communities are much more visible today. You can really see a brand that has one and one that doesn't.
And when you say visibility, you're talking about social media? Or
even if you come to our show, you have there's 500 people there, 100 people are from, buyers, people we sell to, 100 people are press, and then 300 are like friends and
fans.
People and energy, and and we do a party for the public after that, anybody can come to.
It's quite interesting you
feel the energy that it's like more welcoming. You know what I mean?
There's an inclusivity, but also it's kind of actually a little bit in contradiction to what Jonathan Ackroyd just said, that he said that luxury, he felt, had become a lot less kind of tribal in that sense, that people would stick with a brand head to toe. Actually, what you've cultivated is a brand with like this kind of incredible loyalty to it, and people who will go with you. But presumably, sorry to ask an extraordinarily long question, that then lends itself to the collaborations that you do, because through then your work at Nike and Moncler, you're bringing this kind of community with you into other spaces as well.
Yeah, just to answer the streetwear question before we move on to the collaboration question, you know, I think there's streetwear as, and a community of people. You know, like in Italy, they listen to rap music. In Japan, they listen to rap music. It's like just kind of the music of, you know, 20, 30-year-olds, you know what I mean? My dad listened to it. And so then you get categorized as a streetwear brand if you're part of that community. But then also streetwear as like a type of garment traditionally is like screen printed t-shirts or like a drop system. So I think, you know, we're kind of like a blended model, you know, also because my business partner is one of like the forefathers of streetwear. He was one of the original Stussy tribe. He brought streetwear to Europe.
Which I wore 100 million years ago, very devotedly.
Yeah, and we just did a Stussy collaboration this year, which was really cool. But that being said, you know, I don't think that, I think that we have elements of tradition and elements of streetwear brands.
So do you think streetwear then is a useful term to cover like a business model? Because you talk about the drops and you talk about the way in which things are manufactured. It's slightly different. It's more agile, maybe.
Yeah, I mean it depends on what the business model is, whether it's retail based, whether it's like direct to consumer, e-commerce based. Like for the kind of product we make, I still feel like we need to have you know, a small number of stores, maybe there's 100 in the world, that give our product relevance. Yeah. And I think because I'm so proud of the stuff that we make, it's nice to see our product next to another brand's product because you can actually see why it's better. Right. If you see a whole room of one brand stuff, it's hard to tell the difference.
You like a bit of competition.
I think it's just it's good, you know, and those wholesale relationships really like helped you know, validate our brand, you know, in the traditional eyes, and I think that's what the collaborations do too. Yeah. By allowing us to like make product we normally wouldn't be able to make, like Macintosh or Moncler or Nike.
So it's technical know-how.
Yeah, and then also it's a new customer that's learning about us. I think like the customer for Moncler is different than Nike. Yeah. I had no idea how much of an institution that Moncler was until I moved to Italy. Well, they just like posted 1 billion revenues. I mean, every guy on the slopes, I think, is in a Moncler jacket. Yeah, and even like kids, and I mean, my French friends too. Like, I remember having that as a kid. And Mr. Ruffini is such a visionary about, I think, just tapping into creatives. I mean, you know, Guesquier did stuff for him, Junya, Tom Brown. He contacted me after our first runway show. And I think he's just so brilliant. And then shifting his whole model to what he does today, I think is really like a new format that all luxury brands should be looking at, because it's like he's taking the energy of 10 brilliant minds and having them focus on 1 or 2 drops. You know, and so each month he's able to get highly focused, new, well-designed product into his store. You know, there's only so much energy one person can give, and you have 12 months in the year, and there's an appetite for interesting stuff. So with that model, he's able to like continually give newness and energy, but also like really great quality design into his stores.
Well, good for, I mean, Moncler got a nice little shout out there, but back to you. Yeah. You started doing your own catwalk presentations. I mean, that's in some ways maybe running counterintuitive to where we're at also in the market at the moment. Like, do we need the show? What's the value of the show? What is the value of the show?
We were recognized for the first 4 years of our brand as being a brand that was having a lot of success without doing the show. Yeah. But it felt we had gotten to a point where we wanted to, well, it had always been a dream of mine to show. I've always wanted to do that, but where we wanted to take that step and also give our community a place to celebrate Alyx, you know, because with the lookbook shoots as well, you have like 1 or 2 models. It's hard to like create that mood. And what I love about the show too is you can show how our clothes can be worn on lots of different types of men and women.
Yeah. I like this idea of the mood, though. It's a bit like, if you look at what you did as well in the music industry, it's like creating that atmosphere. Is that, do you ever bear that, is that something that you bear in mind in terms of like, it's a tonal thing, it's not, it's more than a collection, it's...
Yeah, I mean, this project is so personal.
Yeah.
It's, because, you know, all my past work had really been about collaboration and uplifting other people's ideas, which I really love doing. I love being that person. But it's quite intuitive with Alyx. I'm not so like calculated about that stuff. Honestly, all the music stuff, it just feels like a distant dream. Yeah. In the past, it was like so much, so fast. Like
I'm just looking at the catwalk show as more than just a presentation of clothes, though. And when you say in terms of
I think there's like an expectation of you know, me to provide something that like has a new song or some energy around it. Like we're commissioning an artist to make some original compositions for the next show. But you know, even though we can do some of that stuff, I think it's important for these first shows, especially, for the focus to be on the clothes.
Yeah, sure.
And not all the spectacle around the clothing, because that's what I've worked so hard to create is that ability. To make what we make. So I would like to be, I like that to be the focus.
And also it's quite interesting listening to Oliver Brown talking about having the focus to develop one product and then sort of specify that and then build his categories out. You seem to have come in with a fairly fully complemented all category, like tailoring t-shirts, it was all there from the get-go.
Yeah.
Was that by accident or was that by kind of default, or how's that come about?
Yeah, I mean, we started as a women's wear brand for the first 3 years, and then we launched men's 2 years ago. I think I just wanted to make that full look because I had always had dreams of working as a creative director for like a luxury brand and having my own brand. So I wanted to show that we had something to say in all those categories. And I think we've been lucky enough that they're all doing well. But I'm not sure it's like the smartest approach for everybody. You know, we were very fortunate that it worked out. I think, you know, other people should think about he did.
How they get starting off. I mean, how important is how important is menswear to category, like in fashion now? Women's wear is obviously something which hasn't been developing as quickly. Menswear has had like huge growth, especially when you look at streetwear. Where do you see the sort of in 5 years' time where menswear will be vis-a-vis women's? Will it all be shown together as one?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. It's kind of like an industry thing to talk about the show schedules and production deliveries and everything. For us, it makes sense to show the men's and women's together during the men's week, because our men's and women's clothes, first off, have a dialogue with each other. We use similar fabrics. I design them at the same time. And then it helps with our production and our delivery. But now we're growing to a point where we need to be available to show the collection when the women's buyers are in the city. So we're speaking about next year, you know, offering maybe like a women's pre or something separated. But you know, I think each business has to find their own.
It seems like we're all in a state of flux at the moment, and everyone's sort of experimenting with things. But to get away from the kind of minutiae of your business models, you know, you've worked with so many people now. You're kind of constantly in dialogue. You said your team of like around 30. You're dealing with Moncler. You've got Nike. You're also doing, you know, you're manufacturing for Dior. Do you think fashion has become a friendlier place?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, definitely.
Are you part of that change, do you think?
I think it's for other people to say what I'm a part of, but you know, I'm fortunate enough to have friends of mine give me opportunities to, like Kim, that I've known for 10 years, to collaborate with him. But yeah, I think now with transparency, with people really wanting to know the details about every minutia of a product and a brand, I think that's super important. I mean, a good analogy somebody said the other week to me was like, in the past, the kids that worked at the record shops were the most knowledgeable about music. They would know the release or the B-side or whatever.
Yeah.
And now like everyone is
the kid in the record
at
shop.
the record shop because of all the information. And I feel like fans of our brand know more about our product than the buyers that buy the product.
And do you feel like...
And it's really exciting, and I mean, we're taking it a step further. We're going to be the first brand to introduce blockchain technology next month or this month at Copenhagen.
Right.
We're doing a blockchain prototype that shows like the raw material to finished garment.
And this is all part of a drive towards kind of carbon neutrality, sustainable practice.
Well, I think that when I began the brand, there was a lot of buzz around that, and there's a lot of innovation in the sustainability space. And so I've kind of embraced it and been finding our own way. So we have the upcycled cotton that I told you about. We do recycled nylon from fishing line from Scandinavia with a yarn supplier called EcoNil. And then we're launching this season, and with my next Nike shoe, the special leather that's been developed by Eco Leather in Amsterdam, where the dyeing process of the leather uses CO2 gas.
Right.
So they spin CO2 gas super, super fast until it becomes liquid, and then it penetrates the pigment into the skin and uses the moisture that's already in the skin to dye the skin any color. So that's like the most sustainable dyeing process of leather. So those are like 3 examples that we're doing, and now we're trying to introduce and see how we can do this blockchain project.
I'm really curious about, in terms of inclusivity though, and how you talk to people and the demands that there are, and there's so much out there. It's so easy for brands to make a misstep. It's so easy for the inauthenticity of something to be exposed. Where am I going with this question? I'm suddenly drifted off in my head. But like, do you feel a kind of onus of responsibility? Do you worry about it? Do you like? I mean, one thing that someone said to me the other day is like, I think we're going to enter this period now where like things become very inoffensive. Like, there's going to be a kind of like lessening of things where there used to be a bit more risk taken. Do you think? Where do you think we are in that sense?
I mean, I think that's why I didn't really answer the question before about menswear in 5 years, because like our world's just changing so fast. It's hard to do much more than just do what you can today.
It'll be them wear.
Yeah, and
they wear, we wear.
I think that's why we look more internal than external. We don't really like follow trends. We like create them. Yeah, and sometimes things work. Sometimes but we're not growing so fast. It's been quite a steady growth for us.
Right.
So we're quite stable, and there's been ups and downs already. And so we're just doing our thing and not so. I mean, it's really unique what we're doing, I think, and the kind of supply chain we've set up in Italy. So
talk to me about Italy. Like, you've gone from being in New York, like going a bit up between LA and like where do you look for creative stimulation in Ferrara, right?
Ferrara.
Yeah,
Ferrara.
Which is where Copernicus discovered.
Oh yeah, the Earth revolved around the sun.
There you go.
Yeah,
so
discovered that.
Amazing innovations happen there. But when you sit in your studio, I mean, I don't believe there's such thing anymore as a kind of a lone visionary, but to some extent, obviously, there's you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Where are you getting it from?
Well, one thing we say is like our brand is about evolution, not revolution. So we work on making the things we do better.
Right.
So now we're going for 5 years. There's a large part of the collection that's fabrics that we've developed from scratch or processes that we've been working on for a year, 2 years that now become ready to go in the collection. So it's kind of first looking at how we can make everything better. And then there's like loose moods within the collection. Sometimes it comes from, I still travel a lot. It comes from conversations or can be an image or a garment.
I mean, let's say this fairground buckle.
Yeah.
Like, do you know you've got a banger? Do you like, this is going to be it? Or is it just a beautiful accident?
No, that was actually the first product we ever released. It's like the first post on our Instagram, and it was about a year and a half. Nobody bought it.
Okay.
Everybody said it was really too expensive for a piece of hardware. We work with like a engine manufacturing company to make it. So it's quite not fashion friendly as far as like supply chain and cost and everything. And sometimes there's 3 of them on a backpack. So it makes absolutely no sense. Any business person would say don't do that. But
Right.
there was some feeling and energy about the piece and how it came into my work that I believed in it. And then slowly it picked up and became like a signature after about a year and a half. And that's why I say, you don't really know what those things are going to be, but I think the creative director has like a feeling about something. That's like I feel that way about sustainability. We've been working for 3 years on that, and it's been really difficult moving our supply chain into that space. We've had to have lots of agreements with different manufacturers. We've had to convince them that it's still like a superior product,
So
there's a stigma around sustainable materials being less than.
There is that, and there's also, I think, like just a general kind of ennui about it. Like people go, oh yeah, sustainability.
Yeah.
It's like actually start a conversation. People are like,
But we don't talk about it so much. It's on like our swing tags,
Yeah.
and we kind of just do it, and
Exactly.
it's an additional pillar of what we do. But I think it's important, since this is like an industry-focused conversation, to speak about, our approach to it. But I think those things then slowly become something, or like we.
or instantly become something. So it's
Yeah.
like something existed, it was there, but then suddenly it's sort of elevated to kind of.
It
like-
happened with our chest bag
Yeah,
too. Now
yeah.
that's like a kind of bag that every brand offers
Yeah.
in their catalog of bags, like a backpack.
So the pressure's just on you to keep on having.
No, but
another
it doesn't happen like like someone wears it or it's a cool thing. But I think like as a creative director, we just have to believe in the thing that
Well-
we want to do, even though A plus B doesn't equal C always.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we're down to our last minute, but I think what you say is like really interesting in terms of, you can work with a load of people and you can have a load of discussions, but actually it comes down to a gut instinct a lot of the time. Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
and just making a decision based on just it feels right.
I think if you were to ask like some of the leading creative directors in our industry, they'd probably say the same thing, that instinct is like a huge part of why one thing's successful and another thing's not.
So it's like that if you build it, they will come mentality. And on that legendary note by Kevin Costner, I want to say thank you very much to Matthew, and thanks for everyone for listening. Cheers.